Welcome to another edition of Believe in Giants, along with the man himself, the two-time Super Bowl champion, and the key component of this podcast, Carl Banks. I'm Bob Papa. Carl, on this Friday morning, we get ready for the Giants and the Cowboys, and all hell's broken loose around the National Football League. We got no idea who's definitely playing, who's not. The Browns have been ravaged. The Washington football team has been ravaged by positive COVID tests. The Giants have been hit pretty hard. It's certainly hard to build cases for teams in games when you're missing so many people and you don't know what the latest nasal swab is going to bring.
Yeah, that is the really perplexing thing, because the NFL does not want to cancel games, clearly. Players are upset about that. And, now they're adjusting the protocols as a result of, players being asymptomatic and vaccinated that they could possibly be back on the field. But it is it's an ever-changing world that we live in, and something we're probably going to have to live with for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants are dealing with a bunch of guys, and it's, this is the wrong week to potentially be down a lot of cornerbacks and DBs, because this is a Dallas team that comes in, Carl. And, I know Dak Prescott in his last 6 games has been pedestrian, would be the proper word to put it. 3-3, 63%, 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But you got to feel like at some point they're going to be able to break out with the weapons that they have. And he's pretty much owned the Giants in his career. I mean, he's won his last 8 in a row against them. In 10 games, 10 starts, he's got 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. And if you're down bodies on the defensive side of the ball, that's a tall order. They better hold on to interceptions and fumbles when the ball's on the ground or in the air.
Yeah, Bob, it's, again, like I said, it's a whole new world. The competitive balance, when teams are ravaged or hit by the injury bug, and then now you have the COVID bug that can take a player out with no warning, and it just, it will zap your ability to compete. But I mean, even with a healthy Giants team, my goal for this week was just to start looking forward, right? We're going to call the game. We're going to call the game like we see it. We know what the issues are. We've outlined those issues for a very long time, right? So now let's look forward. And I'm not saying we're going to be, trying to put a positive spin on things, but there are people that are going to play, that are going to factor into the future of this team that I really want to put a microscope on and just start to talk about, what the future could be, because they're going to go out and try to win the game. They're going to be players like Xavier McKinney out there, hopefully, that is going to factor big into the foundation of what this team will be doing going forward. Xavier McKinney, I said Xavier McKinney, their pass rusher, Andrew Thomas. There are a lot of guys we're going to see that we need to. Ojulari, right? Yes. A lot of guys we and fans we really want to, hear about in what they're doing.
I am very anxious in this football game. One of the things I'm looking forward to is from a critical eye standpoint, is I'm very excited to watch Andrew Thomas because, he had to deal with a midseason injury. Happens to everybody in the NFL. He got flogged for a preseason performance that was, you cannot talk about a bigger overreaction than what was being said and written about the guy because of a bad preseason game against New England. But the guy had started to come on last year. You saw more positive things. We know how conscientious he is. We know what kind of a good person he is. We know he's not a shortcut guy. He goes through his preparation and is learning how to prepare. And, knowing that a guy like Pat Flaherty is there to at least be in his ear along with the rest of the offensive line coaches. He's really grown as a player. And you know what? He's going to get a test this week. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he handles himself against DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, the whole group that Dallas can bring at you. It's going to be a challenge in this football game. And I'd like to see how he holds up in this game.
Yeah, and that's great. And it is something you should watch because think about it. Thomas and Micah Parsons will be competing against each other, hopefully, for the next 8 to 10 years or more. Tank Lawrence is probably going to be competing against him for the next 5 to 7 to 8 years. So these are matchups that you got to look forward to every year. So you want to see how he starts to compete against those guys.
Randy Gregory, you throw him in the mix.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm looking forward to. You and I talked about this on the podcast on Monday, and I hadn't seen the results yet, and I don't have them right in front of me, but I do know that, like, according to Pro Football Focus, like, Nate Solder graded out pretty well last week.
Yeah, but don't tell the guy who put the one play up that wasn't 100% his fault, but he put it up and it was, and then it started the whole thing. But I said, Nate played 60-something plays and he had one visibly bad play. And by the way, the Chargers' best pass rusher didn't get a sniff. He had one tackle, one sack. So he wasn't active. So he was doing something right because we didn't call his name. And that's when a tackle is doing his job, is when you're not saying his name a lot in terms of getting beat, giving up a pressure and things of that nature.
Carl, I know that there's a scenario where, hey, oh my God, these guys are promoting Nate Solder. Fans, listen with your ears. We're just talking about one instant. We're talking about a game last week. We are not saying that the sky is blue and all is well and so on and so forth. We're just pointing out something from last week. We know it's an issue. That whole position is an issue. We know the offensive line is an issue. But I think that in terms of fairness, we're just trying to highlight some football stuff that happened last week. Because you know what? A lot of people just brush it aside. Like, and then if he has a bad game, see, I told you. Okay. Mm-hmm. Just trying to be fair and balanced, especially with the holidays coming up.
Yeah. And we are very clear-eyed on the fact that Nate Solder is not the future of the Giants offensive line. The guy who we should be talking about is Matt Pert. And he's, listen, I want to be encouraged by him. I want to see him out there. If he has to play these last few games just to get his experience in game, then so be it. Especially, and I'm not trying to say that Glennon or Fromm are crash test dummies, but if Daniel Jones is going to be shut down, which I don't know if he will or not, but if he's not going to be out there, then maybe it is time to get the real-time evaluation on Pert and just put him out there, let him play. People were coming at me saying, well, he did okay at left tackle and all of a sudden he can't get on the field. Well, they need a right tackle. They got a left tackle. So if you're saying he needs to just play left tackle, the Giants are probably not the team for him. So he needs to go and play right tackle and do well. And like I said, if the Giants if they decide that they're going to shut Daniel Jones down and it's Fromm and it's Mike Glennon, hey, Pert, you're out there. Go convince us that we did a good job.
Yeah, and listen, this is not the week or the time to lament or pick over the roster construction and the roster and who's on the roster, who's not, where they messed up as far as roster selection or picks or free agents, because it does not matter right now. Like you can, and fans have spent the last 8 weeks picking over roster decisions, players on the roster. It doesn't matter. Nothing's changing as of right now. So there's a game to be played on Sunday. Mike Glennon, he's trying his best. It's just interesting with Glennon, Carl, when we watch these games in person. It's just funny how, as the game goes on, he loses effectiveness. It's the weirdest thing, because the first couple drives of the game, it's amazing how much zip he's got on the ball. There's a decisiveness. And then as the game wears on, the balls become wobblier and stuff like that. It's one of the more fascinating things that I think I've seen, because I can't recall a guy that has this visible change as the game goes on.
He's like the 16-bit video game where they show the power meter, and all of a sudden, as it goes on, the game goes on. But I think what the Giants have got to do in this, and I'm talking about his supporting cast, they got to leave those little power-ups all over the field. That means, you got to catch a few passes, keep the drives moving. And I think his power meter will go up, because the more success he has, I think the more the adrenaline flows, the better the team goes. And I think that energy level will stay up, but it's a concerted effort. But yeah, he's like, that meter goes down as the game goes. But if guys start catching balls and getting first downs, I think it becomes easier for him as well.
Look, I understand Giants fans' frustrations, right? I mean, the Giants haven't had 5 consecutive losing seasons, which with their 9th loss last week guarantees it, since they had 8 straight losing seasons from 1973 to 1980. There's a lot of frustration amongst the fan base. You and I get it along our Twitter feed. But I'm interested in this game to see. Every week I say the same thing or a similar thing. Saquon Barkley. I'm going to go with Barkley Booker, the 2 Bs. Look, for the Giants to be competitive in this game and have a chance, the 2 Bs have to be sharp.
Yeah.
They've got to, when there's a hole that presents it, they've got to read it properly. They've got to hit it. They've got to be decisive, because the one recipe for the Giants to have a chance in this game is they're going to have to play a little keep away.
Yes.
If you give Dallas the ball too much, with what they have, what they're bringing to the table, barring any kind of positive COVID tests, it's too much to handle. The Giants can't score enough points. So can they make this game muddy? Can they make this game ugly? Carl, you always talk about it. Dallas is a very good front running team, but if you can muddy the waters, it makes it a little bit more difficult on them.
Yeah. Well, see, you've got to be willing to slug, though. If you're not willing to go in and make it muddy, then you would think that the more physical, aggressive, angry team were the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are flying around having fun right now. They don't get punched in the mouth much. They play the game on their terms. I think for the Giants, they've got to do what is necessary to keep them from playing on their terms, to disrupt them. There's got to be a jab somewhere that messes up their rhythm. And do they have enough good players to do that? Well, they got some healthy players on the roster. You just named 2, Booker and Barkley. They've got Ingram. They got Rudolph. They got Galladay. They've got some players that should, at this point, especially some of the guys that have been injured, they should have fresh legs. They should be a problem. They should pose a problem for Dallas. And some of these guys still have things to prove. or want to prove things. You think Galladay is happy with the season he's having? You think he doesn't want to go prove to these Cowboys defensive backs that, hey, I'm still a premium receiver in this league. Don't let the numbers fool you. So there are some things to prove. There's still some talent on the field on the Giants side. They just gotta put together a great game plan and execute it. And that's in it in a nutshell. There's a path to victory. It ain't gonna be easy, but if you focus on it, there's some things you can do. And then here's the other thing, the other motivation. Let's not forget the celebration that was had when Daniel Jones was knocked out of the game. And I'm not talking about the kid that made the tackle. I'm just talking about just the whole arrogant nature of after the game, the post game, and how they just felt like they completely dominated the team, in which they did. I don't know the makeup of this roster, but I would not forget that if I were playing.
I just hope that the Giants are level-headed, because remember, I think Tom Rock
the guy who punched Evan Ingram.
Sucker punched him after the game.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't forget that. I wouldn't forget that. Yeah. And, Kadarius Toney, who won't be in this game, but, he was having one hell of a game until it got the best of him. But I would take all of those motivations and put them into the execution bucket and go out and show them a little something different.
Right. Bring the heat, but don't get yourself kicked out of the game, because it does no good.
No.
The other thing, Carl, I was going back and looking at that game, despite Daniel Jones getting knocked out, Saquon getting hurt. The Giants had the game tied, but the end of the half, that was early in the season.
Sure.
And, that's where the end of the half stuff was. At that point in time, it was being talked about as, this is something we got to figure this out. Got to tighten this up. Hasn't really been tightened up, because Dallas went right downfield. They got the score, and then that was kind of all she wrote from that point on. Hey, fans, say goodbye to dull gifts. Christmas is coming. Lightbox lab-grown diamonds are the brightest gift of the year. Cutting-edge technology, innovative techniques. They have the same chemical makeup as natural diamonds, but grown in a lab. That's right. They got all the colors: blush pink, beautiful blue, classic white. Lightbox lab-grown diamonds. They are perfect. $800 per carat. It's a light price. Visit Lightbox Diamonds. Lightboxjewelry.com. Add sparkle to your holiday shopping. Now, I got a promo code, too. I'm going to save people 50% a little bit later. I'll give you a hint. Believe 50. But I'll give you all the details. Carl, I want to talk a little bit about something that transpired on the Thursday night game that just... I'm a little partial to the Chargers.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Justin Herbert. Now I'm partial to the Chiefs too, because Steve Spagnuolo's there and Andy Reid is a great guy. And, I go by how people have treated me over the years, and Andy Reid has treated me like gold. And Spags is Spags. He's the best. But I had no problem with the Chargers going for it on 4th and goal on the first drive of the game. I'm like, all right.
They're feeling it.
They're feeling it. Hey, let's show the Chiefs here where
strike. Yeah.
We know that a field goal kicking game ain't gonna beat you.
Mm-hmm.
So we know what we're gonna pin you down if we have to, but we're going for this thing. And they didn't make it. Now they dropped 2 touchdown passes. They were saying on the broadcast, well, that was a very important stop by the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't stop them. The Chargers stopped themselves. They dropped 2 of 4 plays that should have ended the drive in touchdowns. They get nothing out of it. And listen, you know how I feel about analytics. Analytics, to me, it's just a word that people get scared of, but it's been a part of pro sports since the beginning of time. When they stack a batting order, they do it based on averages and power numbers. Well, batting averages have been going on in baseball since the 1800s. Tom
Yeah.
Landry used percentages and math and film study to create the umbrella and defense to stop Jim Brown and tendencies and all the. So analytics it's always been there. It's just got a name now that drives people nuts. But at some point, especially like at the end of the first half, you got to kick the field goal to go up 7, knowing the Chiefs get the ball to start the third. Like to me, last night's game, the Thursday night's game was reckless, and a young coach cost his team a chance to win the division.
Yeah, and see, when you're steeped in data, and you don't realize that data doesn't have a heartbeat, right? Data doesn't throw incomplete passes. Data. So there's so many things. The data can tell you to do something, but what do you feel, right? Now, Coach Staley said he felt that he's going to always be aggressive, but common sense tells you need to get points on the board. Now that you missed this first opportunity, you need to get some points on the board so that you can give Kansas City a little something to work for when they come out. Because as you saw as this game went on, those neglected opportunities start to really manifest themselves. Then you start to do the math and you say, boy, they could be up by this and Kansas City could really be chasing. But and the Chargers played a good game defensively, as good as they could, even though they gave up 200 yards to a tight end. But it was, they competed very well, but like you need points. And, the data people will tell you, well, the 7 would have been more than the 3. Well, the 3 would have been more than what you got. And the operation, and this is where I think the data guys, they try to justify a lot of subsets, right? But here's the one thing. The execution of a chip shot field goal versus a play. Like if you got to kick a field goal, a chip shot, your linemen have to do one thing. Your snapper, your holder, your kicker. When you start to introduce a bunch of variables and guys are moving around and running routes, there's always a likelihood of failure, more so than a chip shot field goal. There are just a lot of variables. So you can get the right personnel out and you can see what happened. Guy could catch it, fall down, hit his head, right? And people will say, well, who's to guarantee that the field goal is going to go in? Go look at the statistics and see what the percentages are of that kicker making one from the 5-yard line or from the 8-yard line versus, a pass that includes several reads, several guys blocking, and the opportunity for a lot of other things to go wrong.
Then I'll give you another example, Carl. And it's just, if you're going to use the analytics, hey, we're going for it. We're going for this. We're going for that. We're going. Here's where the Chargers then totally messed up. Their analytics guy was not thinking clearly, because when the game got tied and then the Chargers went down the field, or no, when the Chiefs got, I'm just trying to think of what the numbers were. Anyway, when the Chargers got to 28 and they scored the touchdown to go up 8 points, it was 21-20. There you got to go for 2. They kicked the extra point to go up 8, but there you go for 2 because you already have 7 in your pocket. You're already winning by 7. So if you kick the extra point, you're up 7. So if the Chiefs come down and score, they're probably going to kick the extra point and take their chances in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
If you go for 2 there with 2:15 to go in the game or whatever it was, 2:40, and you get it, now you're up 9. The game's over. You've won the game, barring an onside kick.
Yeah.
So it was a mishmash of what happened last night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, young coaches get get tapped for a lot of miscues. We see that here with the Giants in some of their management situations. Staley will survive it. Hopefully he'll learn from it. He says he's going to stay aggressive, and I applaud that. But sometimes your coaching instincts have to take over. You have to have a feel for the game, and you can't have people tell you how the numbers say you should operate when you have your finger on the pulse of the game. But and here's the other thing too, where I can see where analytics can be. I know where they're helpful, and I'm not anti-analytic, but when you get to a certain part of the season, right? They count as one game. It's 17 games in a season. But when you're playing for a division and it's either tie or go back two, you better consider every decision you make, because now you're back to, now their schedule is probably more favorable than the Chiefs, so they may be able to climb back up into a tie. But going back two games is not a comfortable situation to be in. And
no,
you look back.
And if they won the game, they would have had a season sweep. So now all they needed was a tie.
Correct. So now you're going to look back, whatever happens, you're going to look back and say, damn it, if we'd have got that Kansas City game, we're sitting in the catbird seat. Right now, they're fighting now. Like they just brought somebody else into the picture behind them. So, and it's, that's what people have to factor in when we deal with decisions by analytics in certain types of games, because it's a 17, you only get 17 of them. It's not baseball, it's not basketball. And so you've got to really make great sound decisions on a game by game basis.
All right, fans, I got a little gift offer for you here. BetOnline is your number one spot for basketball, football, casino games, UFC, boxing. It's the place you got to go. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website. Sign up today and you can receive 50% on your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Simple. Use the promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50. And you get 50% off your welcome bonus. BetOnline, the fastest, easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's circle this back to the Giants here, Carl. Just in summation here, we know that this is a big task this week, depending on, all these COVID things. Here's the deal. It's going to be hard. You got to force turnovers. You got to make the game ugly, muddy. You got to keep Prescott questioning himself. Tell me the best possible way for the Giants to win this game, especially when you look at what they can possibly do offensively against this Cowboys defense.
Well, I think for the Giants, it's stopping the running game. You got two running backs there that, when healthy, are really good. Right now, neither one of them are at their best. So you want to have those. You want to keep Zeke limited. You don't want those 5-yard to carry first downs.
Pollard too, man.
Yeah,
Pollard.
Both of those guys. And Pollard is a guy who can be a home run hitter if he gets through there. And Giants gave up some big runs last week. So they've got to stop the run and then play sound pass defense. But the key right here for the Giants is stopping the run. If Dallas wants to throw the ball 40 times, let them. There will be a mistake to be had, but you cannot let them run the football on a consistent basis, because if they do, there's just no stopping. So stopping the run is what they have to do from a defensive standpoint. Offensively, it's just, listen, stay on schedule, do whatever you have to do to stay on schedule. Don't get behind the chains, because they will wreck your passing game. If you're third in anything more than 9, they're coming.
Yeah, and listen, they're number one in the NFL in third down defense. Teams are hitting only 30.9% against them. Teams are 6 of 13 on 3rd and 1. If you're in 3rd and long, you're toast. So you got to be productive on 1st down for certain, and keep yourself in manageable situations. Listen, I just in wrapping up, I want to ask you this. Now, you were not drafted yet by the Giants when Lawrence Taylor was a rookie. I remember, Lawrence took the NFL by storm as a rookie. And I know people get very crazy when Lawrence Taylor's name is associated with anybody's name as the next, because Lord knows, Carl, how many guys over the years have been the next Lawrence Taylor?
Yeah.
Dubbed the next Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
To not become the next Lawrence Taylor.
Right.
And I'm not comparing Micah Parsons to being the next Lawrence Taylor. But I will say this, from a disruptive, imposing your will standpoint, in a rookie season vacuum, Micah Parsons' rookie season is at least in a discussion to being like a Lawrence Taylor rookie season.
Well, yeah, in the context, I agree 100%. And in the context of the sport today, the way the game is played today,
sure,
he is as disruptive as can be. And proof of that is there ain't many other defensive players that have been in the league other than Aaron Donald that have been as disruptive this year as Micah Parsons. So that tells you everything you need to know. He's going to be fun to watch over the years. I think he even said it too. He wants to be the guy people are compared to. He wants to be the Micah Parsons of NFL, where people are saying he's the next Micah Parsons. So look, Lawrence's legacy and how he changed the way people even drafted is there. Micah Parsons is not doing that as of yet. But he is disrupting. He's definitely changing the way people game plan from week to week. You better find him and know where he is. I haven't seen enough of him in certain situations. I don't think teams have run at him. I'd like to see him play against a team like San Francisco, where Kittle will line up and say, okay, let me see how good you are. And then they're going to run those traps and those powers and see how he takes on all of that stuff. That's what I want to see, the next evolution. Something tells me he'd fare pretty good though, but I think that's what we need to see. He needs to be challenged at that level.
Yeah. And again, we're in a situation here where we're using something as a benchmark. And we are not by any stretch of the imagination saying that he is or has surpassed that benchmark. We're just saying that he's at least a guy that's gotten into this benchmark.
Well, he's having an impact on the league similar to a rookie Lawrence Taylor.
Correct.
And it's in the context of this era of football, this style of football, and not the 70s, 80s, and 90s, or the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So this is his impact. And you want to look around the league and see who else is impacting it at that level? Nobody's doing it better than Aaron Donald. But this guy, this kid, there are a lot of defensive players out there. None of them are doing what he's doing. So he's impactful. Let's just see it for what it is.
And by the way, the last rookie to win the NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's going to get it as long as Aaron Donald was playing the way he's playing.
Probably not. Probably, especially with the Cardinals, especially with the Rams beating the Cardinals the other night, and Donald having such a huge effort. All right, Carl, we're out of time. You know how we like to end this thing.
Yeah. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Believe podcast.
And watch the little things, folks.
Yeah, we're into the little things right now. We've talked big picture, and we've all had our spaces to really state the obvious. It would be stating the obvious now. So let's just watch the little things. Let's look at how this team gets moving going forward. Now, we're not going to not do our jobs, but we're going to keep looking at things that should factor into the future of this team as well.
Yeah, because everything else is going to sort itself out when the season
Yeah,
ends. All the other
exactly.
stuff that we've been talking about, that will all sort itself out. So tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Believe in Giants with Banks and Papa. Check it out. Subscribe. We'll be back early next week for a recap of the Giants and the Cowboys. Enjoy the game, everybody.